Hi, everyone. How are you? Happy Thursday. Okay, I'm not like actually that late, which is good. Also, let me know if you can hear me. I'm super excited. We're going to talk about Megan Thee Stallion, her contract, and BTS and their song Butter and like what's all going on with that. Can you guys hear me? Hey, Jace. Okay. Hey, James. Okay, perfect. Awesome. So, yes, also, hello, type effectiveness. And no, that 9 a.m. meeting was not useful. Neither was the 5:45 meeting. I would be on time if it weren't for that. Anyways, but yes, awesome. So let me go ahead and get our video pulled up. So a while ago, and I want to say, first and foremost, isn't this a lovely picture of her? She's stunning. Um, a while ago, after I did the Kanye contract, you guys asked to do a review of Megan's contract, and my answer was like, "Oh well, they haven't leaked it, so like I can't see it." That answer is still technically true, but we have more facts. I have found some new information. So we are going to go over that. We are going to go over her contracts since she has multiple of them. And we are going to go over TRO, what exactly a TRO is. We're going to go over the recent TRO, which she just won. Hi, Tiffany. Which and we're going to talk about BTS Butter and the recent filing. And then we're just going to talk about contracts in general. So, for those of you that are new, I used to work in entertainment. I used to be an entertainment lawyer. I now work in tech. Tech is whooping my butt lately these days, but it's fine. I used to always say tech is a happier place. It's a happier place, but Lord, it's a place where they work you. So, yes. And as such, we many moons ago, if you haven't watched already, when Kanye leaked his contract, we did a whole review of that. So that is something that I would love to get back to, but it is predicated on the fact that people would have to actually leak their contracts for us to do a line by line. This is pretty close. What we're going to do today. I would say it's not a line by line, but it's pretty close. So let's just get into it. Okay. So the contracts. So this is Megan and none other than Jay-Z. Megan currently has 3 contracts. So she is technically signed to 1501 Entertainment, which is her record label. 1501 is headed up by Carl Crawford, who is formerly a baseball player. Which, when I heard that name, I was like, Carl that plays for the Dodgers? Yes, he owns a record label now, which is very interesting, and I'm not going to comment on that. And that is technically a label she's signed to. She's also signed to 300 Entertainment, which is her distribution. Distribution means literally what that word says. That's the people who are supposed to go out, distribute her music, help her with streaming, etc. 300 is kind of her de facto label at this point. And then last but not least, she signed to Roc Nation. Roc Nation is her management. Her mother was formerly her manager, but unfortunately her mother passed away a few years ago, and then she signed to Roc Nation. So those are the 3 main contracts. We're not going to discuss the Roc Nation contract. She has no issues with that, or she didn't voice any issues with that. Most people seem pretty happy with management by Jay-Z and by Roc Nation. So we're mostly going to focus on her 1501 contract and then a little bit on the contract between 1501 and 300, because I thought that was a very interesting point when I was going through everything. Okay, so let's get to the contracts. This is Exhibit G. No, I did not just make that up. I thought that it was very interesting that it was Exhibit G. I'm going to make this a little bigger so y'all can see this because I'm too large right now. Also, now that I know how to make things bigger, I can lean in and my forehead's not in all y'all's face. So yes. So basically, she has the contract with 1501 Entertainment. They are still her main record label, and then the distribution is with 300. So for that relationship to work out, 300 and 1501, they have agreement between themselves as to how the nature of their shared relationship is supposed to work. So the way this was originally supposed to work, Megan complained she realized that she signed with 1501. We're going to get into the specifics of that in a little bit, that she felt that it was predatory. She felt that they weren't helping her, so she wanted to sign with 300. When she signed with 300, 300 entered into an agreement with 1501. And we're going to read a little bit of this. This is from the original lawsuit that she filed last year in March. So this will give us a little bit of insight into the that arrangement. So We're going to go, and this is the original. This is not the first time she's having to sue 1501 to allow her to release music. So that way you understand the context of the exhibit. I took the screen grab of this particular section because the rest of it had like people's addresses. Can't be doxing people on here. All right, so this was a letter regarding 300 Entertainment and regarding 1501. So our client is aware that Theory Entertainment LLC, doing business as 300 Entertainment, has been in the process of recording an album with Megan, including a feature single entitled Bitch, set to release on or about January 24th, 2020. Such activities have been undertaken without 1501's approval, written or otherwise, in direct contravention of 1501's contractual rights. Now, the first part to notice is that 300 is the one helping her actually release the album. They're actually helping her in the studio. Things that her record label should be doing and was not doing, which is why, according to her, why she went and found 300. Okay, so as you're aware, under our mutual Theory Entertainment LLC, so that's 300, with 1501 Entertainment, I won't go through like all of that. 1501 has established contractual rights pertaining to such activities. The exclusive rights granted to 300 under the distribution agreement to exploit artist services as a recording artist are subject to prior approval, including all creative elements, recordings, producers, video, art, etc. So remember this part. As of the date of this letter, 300 has not obtained nor has 1501 granted any of the required approvals as it pertains to 300 aforementioned activities. So this is going to come up again and again and again. So basically, the big issue here and the issue in the original TRO and the issue in this new TRO that she just filed, and she won, spoiler alert, which you guys already knew that, is that 300, according to their agreement with 1501, is supposed to get approval from 1501. That approval seems to be lacking. Also, from a perspective, an outside perspective, it is unnecessary because her intent is she doesn't want to deal with 1501, which is why you're going to see these lawsuits aren't with 300. They're with 1501. Her original record label, that deal she can't technically get out of. And we're going to get into why in a little bit. Okay. All right, so here are the alleged contract provisions. And they're going to be alleged for one specific reason. When we get into the original lawsuit, which then is going to list out section number 14 says blah, 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 blah. The actual exhibit, which is the contract, is sealed. So no, it will remain alleged. However, these are very specific allegations. So in their pleading, they listed out, oh, these provisions do all these things. These are unconscionable. These are not right. Actually, this is a problem, et cetera, et cetera. And then reference the exhibit that the contract is in, that exhibit is sealed. So can't see that exhibit, so they will remain alleged contract provisions. And y'all know I cannot see that, so let me make it a little bigger. Okay, so the first alleged contract provision in her contract with 1501 is 60-40 royalties. So 60-40 split with 1501 getting 60% and her getting 40%. And then third-party royalties, which will be like producers, writers, etc. Those percentage are taken from Megan. So I'm just going to read to you the alleged contract provisions, and then I'm going to go through what is actually standard so you can see that, boo-boo, this is far from standard what she's getting. So 1501 then receives 50% copyright interest to all of her music, as well as 100% administration rights. Number 3, according to Megan and her attorney, she was not paid any advances in connection with the IP rights. Usually, if you were to ever give away your copyright in certain things, like you're going to get an advance. Like when we did the Kanye contract, he got some money. He got some money up front, which is why when other people reviewed it, they're like, oh, look at all this money he got. The money then, it was taken to like spend on music videos, etc. So it's not like he actually received all the money. Okay, and then lastly, exclusive touring rights with a 30% cut to 1501, which is very interesting. So let's go through a little bit of what's standard so you can compare and contrast like what she's getting versus what's standard. All right, so let me look at my notes. Okay, cool. So for industry standard for royalties, it's usually, of course, if you're a bigger artist, you can get better. Usually 75-25 in terms of the other way around with the artist getting 75-25. And then the label, usually what people will negotiate is that the label will have to pay out the third party royalties, which makes sense because why would the artist then pay out the producer, the etc. That should be the responsibility of the label. That's not what she got. It should be mentioned, which I should look up I forgot the age. I think she was 20 years old when she signed this contract, maybe younger. So she was very young, which we're going to go into that part. Okay, so next, the 100% administration rights and the 50% copyright is unheard of. That's not standard at all. It's quite predatory, in my humblest opinion. Okay, so next one, no advances paid in connection with IP rights. If an artist were to give up these things, they should then get some compensation, which she's saying like, hey, all these furs I've been wearing and everything, I'm, looking fly, and y'all not paying for none of that. So what is the reason? And then last but not least, for touring rights, usually most touring places, companies charge like 15% max. Most artists make the majority of their money through touring. So Jay-Z and Beyonce, their tours always rack up hundreds of millions of dollars. That's where the majority of the money is in touring and merch. So, all right. I'm like really not in the mood for like people being annoying. Is that a very blocking mood? I just don't care right now. So yes. And let's go to the next one. Okay, cool. Listen, if y'all are gonna know, like, anyways, I already blocked them. Play stupid games with stupid prizes. I just don't care today. Corporate has tried me, and I'm not gonna let anybody else try me. Okay. So the alleged contract provisions, we're going to get into specifically what was in the lawsuit, the original lawsuit, as to why they're still alleged. But you're going to see these are very specific allegations, as in me saying Section 14 says blah, 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 blah. So I personally am inclined to believe it. However, it is still allegation. Okay, so a provision literally requiring 1501 to do nothing while taking 60% of recording income, a provision providing that all monies paid to or on behalf of Pete are recoupable from royalties paid to Pete. Pete is Megan. And a provision providing that all royalties payable to third parties are paid solely out of Pete's 40% interest. Read as a whole, these provisions mean to defendants take that the vast majority of the recording income and Pete is left making very little for her work, although 1501 is essentially required to do nothing and in fact is doing nothing. So this is according to the original lawsuit that she filed back in March. Okay. And to the statement of them doing nothing, I mean, their attorney wrote a letter to 300 and said, well, you guys are producing this album and doing all of these things and nobody asked me any permission. Which sounds like their attorneys are admitting, well, we're not doing anything, but still you need to ask us before you go and do things. That is the way I took that. The 60-40 split is well below industry standard. Yep. In addition, in return for defendants' interest, they would be expected to perform standard record label functions. Example, A&R, manufacturing, promotion, advertising, accounting, which they are not performing, relying entirely on 300 Entertainment and Pete's manager. As in, their attorney kind of told on them in the original letter that we read, like, well, I guess. I tend to agree. It seems like a lot of nada is being done, but a lot of mouth is being given. Much chat. All right, so continuing on. The alleged contract provisions. So additionally, the contract requires Pete to grant defendant a 50% copyright interest, which she talked about, in all of Pete's songs that she writes, and grants defendant 100% administration rights, meaning they control her songs completely. No advances were paid to Pete for these rights. Under industry standards, Pete's royalty should be 75-25 in her favor. She should have received advances, and her royalty on publishing should not be crossed with any unrecouped balance on the master recording. Yeah, it's getting worse. Hi, Kareen. It's getting worse and just getting worse. All right. So, and lastly, in addition, and very importantly, defendants have no publishing, administration, infrastructure, or knowledge. This part made me laugh. It was petty. And will be nothing more than middlemen who will need to engage a true publisher administrator who will charge fees that Pete will be responsible for, thus diluting her share further. The publisher administrator will be required to register the songs, perform A&R activities, collect income, etc. An example of 1501's complete lack of publishing, administration, infrastructure, and knowledge is 1501's failure to register register Pete's musical compositions with the U.S. Copyright Office. And you know how they found this out? Her attorney simply Googled on the, well, not, you go to the USPTO site, and it's not registered, which they then had to register it. So again, what they're doing is beyond me. It's beyond me what the baseball boys are doing. I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. Okay. And then this is, we won't read through that, but this is basically what we're talking about. So Live Nation, which is, we'll read the shade. We'll read the small shade, which is more. So defendants unconscionably take 30% of all touring monies, which is more than double than what a real touring promoter like Live Nation would take. So Live Nation takes 15%. Exactly. All right, so let's get into TROs. And this guy, in case you were wondering, who is this allegedly awful record label owner? It is one Mr. Carl Crawford, who, yes, is a former baseball player and has decided to make a pivot in his career. Good for him. However, his business practices, I have questions for his alleged business practices. Very, very much so questioning. So let's talk about TROs. So in the news reported, you know, because media just likes to say things, that Megan filed for a TRO. A TRO is a temporary restraining order. Usually when you think of a restraining order, you think of like person to person, like, oh, there's an altercation, there's an issue. You can have TROs for anything in business as well. So for example, with Lil Nas X and the Satan shoes, when we covered that, Nike received a TRO against him and told him like, hey, you can't sell these anymore, and the company with mischief. So a TRO is basically to stop someone from doing something. I'll make it a little bigger so you can see it. So the plaintiff has to show that they will suffer immediate irreparable injury. So with Nike, they were showing, hey, if they do this, and people are going to think that we're satanic, like our market share is going to go down, blah, 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 etc. With this, Megan had to show, hey, Lord, I lost my train of thought. Had to show, hey, the song is supposed to come out on Friday. She filed this, today's Thursday, on Tuesday, on the 24th. So the immediate harm was, hey, if the song doesn't come out on Friday, I'm going to lose money. Also, BTS and their management would likely be upset, etc., etc. So that was the immediate harm. All right. So to the next part. So this is the original TRO that she was granted. So in March of 2020, she filed for her original album, Bitch, that they were trying to block. She filed for a TRO and was like, hey, I already worked with this with 300. I did all these things. Like, I just want to release my money. I mean, I just want to release my music. So like, what's the problem? Like, can I release my music? And the judge agreed with her. The judge granted her TRO, which stated in part, y'all know I cannot see that. Hold on. Where I lean in. I still can't see it. Hold on. Okay. So these are the things that the judge ordered that Carl and them were not allowed to do. 1, to do nothing to prevent the release, distribution, and sale of Pete's new records scheduled for release on March 6, 2020, and to immediately refrain from preventing distributor 300 Entertainment from releasing, distributing, or selling Pete's new records. B, to refrain from threatening or posting any threatening or retaliatory social media posts or threats against Pete, like the type identified in Pete's declaration and attached thereto in the declaration of Miss Iyer. So at one point, she argued, and it was alleged, and you could see it, that Carl and them were threatening her. And that one of the people threatening her had stated on social media that they had mob ties and they had all these things, and she was afraid, which I would be afraid too. Can you imagine being a young person like, I have a dream, I'm going to do this, this is great. This person said they're going to help me. I guess they have good sense. And next thing you find out, like, oh, the sense in my opinion is lacking, and they're also threatening me. It was an awful situation that is continuing on. So TRO is literally temporary restraining order. This is still ongoing. Okay, so let's get to the next part. All right, so the current TRO, this is BTS, the K-pop band, if you're not familiar. The song, yes, it will be released tomorrow, so you can listen to it and listen to all of that. I don't know what antsiness is happening. I see. And yeah, so it will come out tomorrow. So the current TRO we're going to get into that, into the new lawsuit. I think it's funny people saying like, oh, what type of, like, why would she do that? Or, this is her fault, are the same people that have never been anywhere next to the music industry. I just think it's very interesting that people sometimes tend to like lack empathy for others when they have no concept. But it's fine, I feel very bad for her, particularly that her mother died, that she went through this, and then particularly that people and their misogynoir is very loud, as always. All right, so this is the current TRO. So the current lawsuit that she filed, which is basically an extension, if you were to look it up, and it's an extension of the existing lawsuit. All right, so Pete is the epitome of a Houston success story. Yes. Now a world famous recording artist in the rap genre, Pete began her career right here in Houston, where she was first introduced to Carl Crawford and 1501, which would ultimately become her label. From the day Crawford and 1501 fraudulently induced Pete to sign an exclusive contract with them, Crawford and 1501 have done nothing to help Pete grow her career in the music industry and have only put up roadblocks in an attempt to stifle her artistic expression as a music artist and irreparably harm her career. Today is no different. And remember, these are allegations. So once again, defendants, including 300 Entertainment and Prince, are forcing Pete to seek emergency relief from the court before this Friday, 27, 2021, to allow her new music to be released this week as previously scheduled. If Pete is not allowed to release this new track, did I skip it? It will cause irreparable harm. That's what it said. So yes. I mean, maybe the judge fears the wrath of the BTS stans too. Okay, so we're going to read a little bit into this, but we kind of already went into this. So this is specifically about the violations of the TRO and what the judge already granted to them. So I know y'all can definitely not see that. Okay. So let's go through it. Defendant's refusal to allow Pete to release her music, more specifically on March 2nd, 2020, ancillary judge in Harris County granted Pete's TRO and enjoined defendants 1501 and Crawford from, among other things, preventing 300 Entertainment from releasing, distributing, or selling Pete's new records, which we talked about as well. All right. The conduct in question directly violates the plain language in the TRO. Pete now asks the courts to compel defendant to obey the TRO and to hold them into contempt if necessary until they comply. So, as you have probably seen in the news already, the judge granted this. So with TROs, if you ask for a temporary restraining order, it's all about immediate harm. So judges generally respond very fast and they push them up on her docket. So what I find very interesting is this section. So we're going to read this. Now, remember, this is from Megan's attorneys, which is why the language will be so strong. Okay. For unlawful reasons, 1501 and Prince have instructed 300 Entertainment and others that they do not approve of the feature track. On or about July 14th, 2021, 1501's legal representative informed 300 Entertainment's legal representatives. I love when people talk through lawyers. It's so funny. Because whenever people tell me like, oh, tell them this, tell them that, sometimes in my mind, I'm like, you could just email them that and this would be so much faster, but that's fine. That the only way it would grant a waiver for Pete's appearance on the feature track is if Pete agreed to pay a fee arrangement where 1501 received a $100,000 fee to be retained entirely by 1501 that Pete could not participate in. Yes. In essence, 1501, Crawford and Prince are extorting Pete by threatening to harm her career by refusing to release the feature track unless 1501 is paid money at Pete's expense for which they are not entitled to. So yes, you are hearing this correctly. Her own label told her, oh, release your little song. That's cute. Do what you want to do. BTS sounds lovely. But run me, your label, who's supposed to work for you, 100 stacks. Expeditiously, por favor. What sense does that make? No sense. They are supposed to work for her. That's how this works. Labels are not supposed to be sitting here telling their artists, hey, you need to pay me. And yeah, about me doing my job. Don't worry about that. Those other people are doing it, but you need to pay me some money so that way we can do this. It's so strange for someone to sit there and think that that's appropriate. It's going to get worse. So let's continue on. All right. So, in doing so, in case you have read in the news that yes, Megan Thee Stallion has posted bond, it's actually called bond of $10,000. Is she in jail? No. Was she arrested? No. What is the bond for? The bond is for the TRO. So let me make this a little bit bigger for y'all so you can see. So, Texas Rules of Civil Procedure 684. The way that you get a temporary restraining order in the grand state of Texas is, let's read this. The court shall fix the amount of security to be given by the applicant before the issuance of the temporary restraining order or temporary injunction. The applicant, so the applicant in this situation is Megan, shall execute and file with the clerk of bond to the adverse party with two or more good and sufficient sureties. Sureties is money. Or you can, you can collaterals like your house, your mortgage, things like that, to be approved by the clerk in the sum fixed by the judge. Condition that the applicant will abide by the decision which will be made in the cause, and he or she will pay all sums of money and costs that may be adjudged against him if the restraining order or temporary injunction shall be dissolved in whole or in part. What does that say in layman's terms? It basically means in Texas, if you want a TRO against somebody, so Megan wants a TRO against her label so that way she can release her music, you have to pay the court a set amount. The set amount that they wanted was $100,000. The court said, okay, cool, run me 10 grand. The court is not using that money. The 10 grand just sits there. It sits there with the court until either A, they rule in her favor. If they rule in her favor by the end of this, she'll get the money back. Or if they rule in Carl and them's favor, that's who gets the money. I don't particularly think that this rule makes any sense. It's quite honestly the most foolish thing. I don't think it incentivizes people that are just trying to go about their business to do the right thing. Also, this is not the first time that she has had to post bond. The original TRO from back in March that she received, so she won. It's like, oh, look, I won. I get to release my album. She had to pay $5,000. So every time you hear that 1501 and them are like, oh, Megan girl, I don't know. We didn't approve that. We don't like it. And she sues them every time because this is in the state of Texas and she filed in Harris District. She is paying a bond every single time, which that's not right. The whole thing is very predatory. The whole system is very predatory. So yes, she won. Yes, the song will come out. However, money was paid. Okay, so last but not least, the only way to help is to stream the song to support her. So that way she, you can pay for this bond. So I highly recommend. Hopefully it's good. I think it will be good. I love her music. And BTS, it's good. So it should be a bop. Hopefully. If not, just play it anyway. Because child, this doesn't make any sense. All right, so let's go through some of the comments. Also, we went through that a lot faster. Now I feel like I left something off, but we'll see. Okay, so let's go through the comments. Okay. All right. So Sarah H, good for her. The abuse within the music industry is huge. It needs to be outed. It's very rampant. And I think just to talk about it for one sense, anybody with an ounce of empathy and 2 ounces of sense, generally speaking, understands why young artists sign these deals. Should they sign these deals? No, of course not. But most people do not know a lawyer. Most people, particularly artists, when they're trying to make it, are like, oh, somebody paid attention to me. This is great. I'm going to get my dream. They don't assume that other people have the intention to take advantage of them. That's generally not people's assumption. Should it be people's assumption? Yes. Always assume that the other person is trying to take advantage of you when it comes to the music industry, because they most likely are. And if they turn out to be a lovely person at the end of it, great. You saved yourself some time, no harm, no foul. How are they going to know? They're not going to know that you assume that they were, the crypt keeper from hell. They're not going to know, because what happens is you sign these contracts, which this is an assumption, because her contract, although referenced numerous times in the lawsuit that we saw, it's not listed there. So I can't say in clause 503, it says, etc. Her contract most likely has a certain amount of albums listed or an amount of years that she signed to them, which is why she hasn't left the label. She can't leave. You have to get out of your contract. There have been numerous artists to get out of their contract if they're contracted to do a certain amount of albums, will just release like crap music or whatever. They're like, okay, whatever, every 3 months, you're going to get ABCs from me. I don't care. it wouldn't necessarily work for her if she were to do that because they have to approve everything. So if she decided, you know what, y'all said 5 albums, watch me and you, and wanted to release 5 albums back to back a month each, they would just keep blocking it, which is what they're doing. You're probably seeing them block everything now because maybe she's close to whatever her term date is. That's what I think, because why would you block a BTS song? That's just going to make her a bigger star, which essentially, since you're her label, should make you more money. Like, doesn't actually make sense. I'm not actually sure that they have sense, but that's irrelevant. All right. So let's go through some. Okay. Listen, you know type effectiveness is how I feel about the osmosis attorneys. People love to just say things. I'm like, that's not okay. Listen, however I feel about the law degree, it cost 6 figures for a reason. it wasn't cheap. Lapis Stone, is she claiming duress? They are claiming coercion of the contract, of her signing the contract. They claim that she was coerced, that it was unconscionable. So contracts of unconscionability or unconscionable contracts are basically nobody in their right mind would sign that or think that that's fair. So they're claiming that they coerced her into signing that, which I don't not believe it. Okay, let's try and go through this. Okay. So, David, I think it's hard for people to empathize with a woman who has so much wealth and power, but she was one of us not long ago. Plus, the protect Black women has evaporated to these people. Child, they're very selective with who they want to protect, and it's very irritating. Also, I think it's interesting if, like, the perception of wealth and perception of power, because a lot of people's perception is based on like, oh, what's your follower count, like how many people like do you interact with, oh, like that's like a lot of power. If we're talking about dollars and cents, we just went through the numbers. Out of everything Megan is making, royalties specifically 60-40, and her 40 is not really a 40. It's like maybe after you pay the writer, the producer, the etc., probably coming down to like 33-34. So how much money is actually there? But listen Child, I'm asking stupid questions. I need men, because it's only men that ask these questions, to learn what bags are. Bags. Things that happen under people's eye when they do not sleep. It's so silly. Also, we could get into a separate conversation of people like looking and scrolling on Instagram too much that they don't realize like what real people look like anymore. But hey, it's fine. Your faves airbrush their bags. Hate to break it to you. All right. You know, I'm just saying. It's so like every it's like once a week now somebody asks. I'm like, it's been there since the beginning. It's just bothering you now? Should make a fan club for my bag. But yeah, we got through everything. So look at us in time for dinner. Look at that. A miracle. But yes, so I have a question where we'll just take like 5 minutes to preview some things that are coming up. I am behind on Patreon. I'm so sorry. So Patreon, for those of you who don't know, is more of like is actually solely historical content, which I love doing. I'm a big history nerd, specifically about colonization. Colonizer Exposed series. Thank you, Jace. Colonizer Exposed series. That series, while it brings me joy to bring those things to light, is very hard to research because it's just very heartbreaking at all times. So yes, France will come out this weekend. I'm going to try, and by try, take tomorrow off. Work has been kicking my ass. We'll see. I'm supposed to be off tomorrow. I don't think it's happening, but we'll see. So that will come out. So we're going to do France is left, England is left, Spain is left. In terms of YouTube videos that's coming out, the Republican girls are fighting. And I appreciate the person that asked me to cover that. because it's not something I would normally cover, but when I read it, it was quite comical. So we are going to cover the Candace Owens defamation suit where she called another Republican girl madam. Yes. I don't know why the Republican black girls are fighting, but that lawsuit is just sheer comedy. So we are going to talk about it. We are going to talk about it. So yes. All right. Oh, that's a good point. So yeah, those are the things that are coming up. And oh wow, it's the end of the month already. So then we're gonna do student loan updates. So it's giving ScarJo vibes, the Megan lawsuit. Is it serious? I'm being very serious. I was thinking, I was like, oh, I know I didn't want to cover it, but it's actually kind of like, what did you say? Why did you say this? Wait, what was the other one doing? The argument, just so to preface this as the comedy of the whole thing, the argument started, the two of them started arguing about Juneteenth. Which again, I will never claim to understand the Black Republican girls, but what are y'all doing? What she's not the one getting she's not the one suing, she's the one getting sued. So I don't know. So we are gonna have an honest discussion about this because I think it's very interesting. It's very interesting. Also, the allegations are tied to Instagram because people say wild things on social media. And when I checked as of yesterday, the video of all her allegedly defamatory statements are still there. So she stands in her boldness of calling the other girl these things. Child, I don't know. I don't know what else to call a child. I'm very confused by the whole thing. That's the only polite thing I have to say about them. So I'm like, that's the only polite thing to call them. So yeah, they're fighting. The girls are fighting, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it. So yeah. No, that realization hasn't happened type effectiveness. No, it's not. Mm-mm. It's not. I mean, she did say it though. She started her rant of the other woman. I'm calling them girls to be nice. The other woman saying, "Oh, I know people don't want Black Republican women fighting each other. However, people should know." It was giving very much, I'm not the favorite token right now. It's very odd. The whole thing is very odd. So we're gonna talk about it because I think you guys need some comical joy in your life too. Because reading it, I just laughed. I just laughed for a good 20 minutes. So yeah. On that note, and then if there's anything else you want to see, let me know. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. All right. Well, have a good night. I was going to say have a good weekend because I'm like, it's Friday. I don't know what day it is. To be honest, as a follow up, okay, fine. I'm going to ramble for 2 seconds. As a follow up to that burnout video, I wonder if when you say that you're burnt out, if it then like really kicks in because all of a sudden work has been 10x and I'm just like, what is wrong with y'all? But it's fine. And some of you know, yes, I had a 9 a.m. Monday morning meeting because I don't know. And I had a 6 p.m. meeting today because I don't know. And yeah, they already scheduled one for next Monday. And I'm like, but why? But yeah, maybe we'll do like a burnout, Lord, follow up to that. And we'll talk about it. But yeah, so good night, everyone. I hope you guys have a good almost weekend. I'll catch y'all later. Bye.